Chapter 19. The serpent-headed man was slightly startled. He wanted to choose an answer, but realized that no matter how he responded, it would be in vain. Suddenly, the serpent-headed man burst into laughter, laughing so hard that he bent over, only to stop after a moment and say, "You're really something." Something? Keeshaw coldly glanced at him. "What's so interesting? Haven't I already won?" The serpent-headed man slowly walked to the wall and pulled a lever. Everyone felt their bodies drop. The entire ceiling began to descend slowly. Yao Jia looked puzzled. He turned to Keeshaw and asked, "Liar, what's going on? Why is this considered winning?" Seeing the ceiling descend, Keeshaw sighed in relief and replied, "Think about it. As soon as this question was asked, we were safe, no matter how he answered. If my next question was, 'Will you pull the lever?' would your answer be the same as this one?" Yao Jia repeated the question, completely baffled. I see. Dr. Xiao nodded thoughtfully. If he answered yes, then the next question would also have to be yes, and we'd be safe. The next question, after all, would be, "Will you pull the lever?" But what if he said no? Yao Jin felt he had found a loophole. Couldn't he just say no? If he said no, the next question would have to be yes. Han Imo said weakly, "The brilliance of this question lies in the fact that if he says no, he admits that he would give different answers to two questions." This serpent-headed man said he never lies. Yao Jin was stunned. He turned back to Keeshaw and asked, "Did you just come up with this? What kind of monster are you?" "I'm no monster." Keeshaw shook his head. "I'm just a wandering trickster." As he spoke, they gently landed on the ground. After hanging for so long, everyone's hands were burning with pain, and the two injured were in even worse shape. "Congratulations. You've survived the interview. Push this door, and a new world awaits you." The serpent-headed man stood next to the wooden door, hands behind his back. Bastard! Yao Jin stormed toward him, seemingly wanting to vent all his frustrations from the human sheep and human dog trials onto the serpent-headed man in front of him. The serpent-headed man looked at Yao Jin coldly, but didn't move. "Are all of you perfect?" Yao Jin shouted, grabbing the serpent-headed man's collar. "Wearing these weird masks, trying to kill us time and again, and now I've finally caught you." The serpent-headed man sneered and whispered, "Why, you're still alive. I'd advise you to let go." "What did you say?" Yao Jin raised his fist, ready to punch the serpent-headed man, but Officer Li grabbed his arm. "Hey, have you forgotten about the man whose head was smashed in?" Officer Li said in a low voice. "If they're all the same, how do you plan to beat them?" A look of frustration appeared on Yao Jin's rugged face. He gritted his teeth and slowly muttered, "At least damned. Relax. Are we getting out of here?" Officer Li interrupted him. "As long as we can get out, I'll make sure they pay." After hearing this, everyone fell silent and slowly approached the serpent-headed man. Up close, they realized just how eerie he was. The temperature around the serpent-headed man was noticeably lower than elsewhere. His old suit and mask exuded a strange stench, somewhere between rotten decay. His eyes shone through the mask, clearly human, but his smell was that of a snake long dead. "Welcome to the new world." The serpent-headed man's muffled voice came from behind the mask as he turned and opened the door. With a creak, light streamed into the room. Keeshaw frowned. He realized that outside wasn't outdoors at all, but a hallway. "Where does this lead?" Keeshaw asked. "As I said, it's the new world." The serpent-headed man slowly raised his hands. "The future God will rise from among you in this new world." "How thrilling." "God again?" Yao Jin asked angrily. "What are you really planning?" The serpent-headed man was clearly intrigued by the question. "An omnipotent God. Someone who can make any wish come true." "Omnipotent?" Yao Jin furrowed his brow. Dr. Shriley waved at Yao Jin, signaling him to stop asking. and then turned to the serpent-headed man. All right, we get it. Now, let us go. The serpent-headed man paused, then nodded and stepped aside. Tijal was the first to move forward. The others, eager to leave, quickly followed. As soon as they stepped into the hallway, a strange smell filled their nostrils. How to describe that smell? Heavy, incredibly heavy. It was as if billions of people had died and rotted in the open air, attracting swarms of insects to feast and breed, only to die and rot again. After this overwhelming stench had decayed enough to lose its sharpness, it had become this heavy odor. It took Kajal a while to recover, and when he opened his eyes, what he saw was even more horrifying. They stood in a hallway that seemed to stretch endlessly. The ceiling was low and oppressive, and along the hallway, countless wooden doors slowly opened, just like the one behind them. Soon, figures began to appear from the doors. Most of them were bloodied masked people. In the distance, only a few doors revealed ordinary people, and though ordinary people looked exhausted and shaky, like KXIA's group, they had survived. What? What is this? Han Imo asked, weakly. There were more than just the 9 of us. KXIA's expression grew darker. The situation was far beyond anything he had imagined. Was this organization capturing countless people to play some sort of death game? So few survived. Shang hence sighed. Of the thousands of doors, only a handful of people had emerged. There wasn't a single room where everyone had survived like KXIA's. Please, proceed. The serpent-headed man gestured to the path ahead and stood by the door, making it clear he had no intention of leaving. Let's go. Knowing they couldn't stay, the group formed a line and slowly left. As they passed the old wooden door, they caught glimpses of the masked figures inside. There were bulls, dogs, and the sheep and snakes they'd encountered earlier. All of them exuded a strange aura and carried the same rotting stench. Most of the rooms were littered with bodies, remnants of whatever game had taken place. After several more steps, they were startled by 2 figures wearing animal masks. On the left was a man with a huge rat mask, leaning against the wall. On the right, a man with a giant rooster mask, arms crossed. These masks were man-made, they were actual animal skulls. But where in the world could rats and roosters be this large? Like the others, these 2 simply glanced at KXIA's group without reacting. What are these animals? Bang Tian was terrified and instinctively backed away from the 2. Ko Zhao frowned slightly, as if something clicked in his mind. Sheep, dog, snake, rat, rooster, the zodiac, he murmured softly, barely audible. Everyone froze, then looked around. Indeed, the animal masks worn by the figures were all part of the Chinese zodiac.